Good
Good
morning.
morning. That was a good one.
It was not. Don't
It was
clap.
a good one.
It was
It was a
not.
good
You
one.
you I
I
said one,
agree.
two, three, and I paused, and you still waited till I said good morning for you to say good morning.
It was a good one. I'm going to
I
be the
gave
positive
you
for the
I
morning.
gave you a beat, and you still.
Good morning. Good morning. I've been rewatching A Different World. Not rewatching, watching for the first time. Rewatching because I didn't watch it the first time. But
Mm.
I wasn't born yet. And that has been my levity to deal with the news because we were talking about off screen how the news is newsing. There's no levity on there. None.
It's like we're headed we're crashing out. We're crashing out bad. We
And
are
it's so
living.
slow too. It's like a slow tumble down the hill.
We are living in a time of calamity, you know? Are the four
Normalized calamity.
are the four horsemen gonna come in?
Uh, your sweater jacket, very cute thing reminded me of A
Yeah.
Different World. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
But I would
yeah.
recommend watch it. It's on Netflix now.
Mm,
So a rewatch for some, a first watch for some.
yes.
It's also shown me how much more subversive black television used to be. Because I just watched the episode they had on apartheid, where they were talking about boycotts and divestment of South Africa because they were US college students in solidarity with South Africans were trying to get the US to divest from South Africa in order to help end apartheid. And I'm like, wow, an episode like this about Israel would never play today, which is sad. And also, like, how do we get back to a place where you could have a blackity black show that doesn't give a damn and says what they want to say? So,
You're making salient points. I personally, I think I realized, I hit this conversation off this morning with Stephanie about evolving our approach to the news because I was listening. Well, one I saw on TikTok, Tad Stormer, who is a historian that I follow, who was talking about authoritarian governments and the decline of society and the fall of institutions and how that is a slow process. And I'm like, I've read this history, I've studied this history, I know you're right. And he was making the commentary about what did he say specifically was that there are elected officials who will in each like in every sort of decline of a institutional power, there are people who attempt to normalize the decline and collaborate, and those who choose to take a stance. And he was making the distinction between AOC and Chuck
mhm.
Schumer. And he's like, you can look to Chuck Schumer and Gavin Newsom, who Gavin Newsom interviewed Charlie Kirk. His son apparently is a big fan of Charlie Kirk. Or was he on Charlie Kirk's podcast himself? Gavin Newsom has been engaging with right wing media and then acknowledged publicly that his own child, and I thought he was getting suited and booted up for 2028. I thought he was going to be the Democratic nominee, but he's doing the age old game of peddling to the right.
Mhm.
And then Chuck Schumer, as senator, along with 12 other Democrat senators, voted for a Republican bill that essentially gives Elon Musk and Trump the ability to subvert Congress and shut down government agencies as they see fit. I mean, all things considered, it was a shitty place for the Democrats to be. It was a lose lose situation. But to Schumer is an institutionalist. He's going to follow law and order, and to follow law and order with a political party and with a president who doesn't care about
And-
like the institutional law. And
or order. Like, none of this is orderly.
no,
Most of this has been illegal, and none of this is orderly.
and then to Tad's point, he's like, the courts don't save you. This is not something you're going to vote your way out of. This is not something the
Mhm.
courts are going to get you out of. And I have to look it up. There's this book we read in one of my classes, and it was about the it was an intellectual history on the Civil War, and the historian was sort of making this argument that what we should, when we go back and review the Civil War, what we should be looking at is the making of an American identity, because part of that war was fought because at that time there wasn't a cohesive identity of being American. There were these smaller colonies and really plantations that people would give their allegiance to just about who could give them the quality of life they wanted. And so to have a president who says we are going to stop this entire system that is an entire economy for really the whole United States, but really specifically the primary economy for a very large region of the United States. We're gonna end that institution. We're gonna move into the order that I say is fit. People looking at him like, who the fuck are you? Who are you to be telling me what to do? And so there was all this work done on the political spectrum to get people to have an American identity so that they would follow the orders of the president. They would follow the orders of the government. I also think that book made an argument about the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court at that time would make rulings. People would be like, why I gotta follow what you said? I'm gonna do what I want to do. And it's like all these institutional powers are just social contracts that we as the citizens make with these powers to follow. You know, somewhere in here, Foucault is having a good giggle, right? About how we yeah, I'm not going to get into too much of a post-structuralist argument here. But this idea that there's like, what is the real power dynamic and why do we follow in line with it? And I think it's very interesting to watch a Republican Party dominated by Trump kind of be the ones that are really highlighting this point for me, because they just don't care. They don't follow anything. There's no consequence for them. They're going to do what they want. Like, they don't care about the courts. No. The Supreme Court could turn on Trump and he would not care. And they're going to they've dismantled the government so much now that they can essentially do what they want as they want to do it. Like, I hope to be alive 50 years from now so I could read about it in the history books too. Like, oh, I was there.
I was there. And we were on the internet disturbed. To your point about Gavin Newsom, I pulled it up and I said it to you from the Hill. And to everyone's point, he started his own podcast called This is Gavin Newsom. And essentially his, I guess, like opus moderandi of the podcast is that he wants to interview Trump supporters in a hopes, like he's saying he wants to interview Trump supporters in a hopes of understanding like their thinking. That's not what he's doing.
It's collaboration.
So he interviewing Steve Bannon. There's no need to understand Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a hateful white supremacist. Insert all of the things. Steve Bannon was on his second episode, to Angela's point. And it's fascinating to see that all of these people who are allegedly at their core saying like, oh, I'm a centrist. It's interesting to see that now we know that centrism has no meaning. Like centrism essentially is far right. And I'm like, okay, good. So at least can we all now get on the page of if someone is telling you like Joseph Robinette Biden that they are centrist, then they're not for you. A centrist is for themselves and is for, okay, yeah, I will talk to whoever, even if that person is a Klan member. And yeah, sure. And I'll get it done. And as long as it enriches me, our center, right now is basically right wing for what it's worth. Like our left is not even Europe center for what it's worth. Like we've moved the Overton window very far.
Computer screen. Ha 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 ha. I want to share.
So his platform before of being like, oh yeah, I'm from California. Like he had, I guess you could call it a PR issue where when initially they were floating his name to run for president before Joseph was like, I'm not going anywhere. They said the PR issue with Gavin Newsom was that he was quote unquote to people who didn't live in California too left. And so it's interesting that he has his podcast now where he's like, okay, you thought I was too left? That's all right. We can shift all the way. Actually, these are my feelings. To your point, my son is also listening to the Manosphere. We are white men for the white men. And that's what he's going about doing, which is
Somebody
fascinating.
says a
For sure.
California Republican strategist says, I think he's playing the long game here. He realizes there's a lot of runway between now and the 2028 election. But I think rather than playing into the people that brought us such great demise and calamity, why not actually speak to on a policy level the very legitimate concerns that the American electorate has about their quality of life and
I think
access
that's
to quality work. Like,
mhm. I think that's also why the positive sentiment for Democrats is also falling, because while people, if you already leaned anything left of center, you already were not going to agree with Republicans, but the Democrats have not done anything for people. So now you have Democrats who, under the guise of, and I think this has been the thing that we said was the downfall of the DNC to begin with, was this courting of the middle. So consistently courting the middle. How are you courting the middle? By talking to Steve Bannon.
and
Steve Bannon is an extremist.
why are we going back to Bill Clinton-esque Democrat? Like, why
Yeah.
are we going back to 1994? We got some terrible policy that came out of, yeah, yes, Bill Clinton absolutely won the white vote when he ran for president. It was Reagan who did 2 terms, George Bush Sr. who did 1 term, and then we get a Bill Clinton who
Two terms.
honestly liberalized Reagan rhetoric. If you look at their presidential campaigns, and this is my area of study, yes, they sound very similar,
Mm-hmm.
just with 2 different ending points. And then Bill Clinton, we get the crime bill in 94, we get temporary aid for needy family, which dismantles welfare, privatizes not only welfare but disability. Medicaid, in part, Medicaid services are run by private equity firms because of Bill Clinton's policy. It's like we just, and then, we get his, international policy that leads to further, like, he goes out of his way for corporations like the Dole Company that harms places like Jamaica and Haiti and many islands in the Caribbean and Central
Hawaii.
America. Like, yeah, the makings of
Mm-hmm.
this mass migration movement go back to policies that Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton's Congresses passed. I think it's great that the Democrats had got all these votes, and like there was, I lived through that period. I remember being a young child, and I remember how excited everybody was for Bill Clinton. But I also think we have to have a critical lens reflecting on the impact of that policy 20, 25 years later, and he could still be a dazzling Democrat president, and we could still acknowledge that like some of that stuff did not age well and has caused other issues. And we need to be a party that is looking towards the future, not constantly looking to get back to what wasn't that great in the first place.
Or we need to get rid of the party and get a new party. Because that party is
Get
workless.
rid of the, I mean, if we're getting rid of the government, get rid of the government. But I believe that we can get rid of the government and in
Well, whether or not we believe in getting rid of the government, that man who overstayed his visa is getting rid of the government,
can we
unfortunately.
get rid of the government? I mean, but like who comes after it? And I just don't think that
Mhm.
like
That's why I do like the abolitionist practice of like, oh, you need to envision the future you want to live in and work towards that future, because the one you're currently in will just drag you to the depths of
I
hell. And
know. I
that's what we're currently in, because I'm like, my imagination, it seems a little stunted. With all the news, the more you ingest it, the more you're like, oh, oh, this is just going to a place that I don't want to go. So I think we have 2 years, less than 2 years now before the midterms. So what is the version that we want that currently does not exist? And then how do we support the people that would uphold that version? So in 2 years, if you live in certain places, well, then maybe you can put those people in power. New York, for all of our qualms in New York, we do have other parties. And we do have other parties that sit in state
I
government. So
feel
we have
like it.
working family parties. So
Oh,
we
good.
have them. Do they run the actual city? No, but they
No.
do exist. And there has been mechanisms, because one is my representative, where we have been able to have like smaller AOC. For what it's worth, AOC is a grassroots movement put her in her seat. So it is possible, and I think we have to imagine a little more, because if not, we're just gonna get dragged into misery. I feel it all the time. I'm like, oh, we getting dragged into, I feel miserable. This whole thing is miserable.
Yes. I'm trying to just think of the future that I want. Like, I don't. I feel like I need to go watch a few more Andrewism videos and then come back to you
He does a
about
great job
like
with that.
where
Yeah.
in the anarchy spectrum do I want us to be at? Like, I want another president? Not really.
The idea that there's one person who obviously their checks, well, they're supposed to be checks and balances. We are seeing that them checks and balances don't exist because there's no enforcement behind the other checks and balances. So we should rectify that in our version of the future. But the idea that we ever, with 330 million people, this is one of the largest countries in the world, have one person to be the president has always been like kind of absurd to me. Like in other, if you watch like sci-fi or anything like that, sci-fi in my opinion does like a really good job of showing like, hey, there are other ways to live a life, because it's science fiction. Star Trek does a really good job about this, where a lot of other fake societies, because they don't exist yet, but how societies used to run, there's council of people that filter out, so that way you have a civic responsibility. So if we had a council of like 12 people, like, okay, you serve a 2-year term and we cycle you out, and actually you do rotational at 25 years old because we need to hear from the young people. You know, at 65, you should go take some rest. Life is not promised to you. There's no reason that our president is almost 80 years old. Sir, please, let's embrace seriousness. There are so many other ways. So maybe now is the time that we focus on the other ways. So that way in 2 years, we're not falling back on like, well, here's my Democratic, my DNC candidate, because 9 times out of 10, what is that DNC candidate about to do for us?
Fall in line with the establishment, you know? And let's look
And
at
they're
this.
not, and we're all going to be just mad
Look
again.
at the establishment, because yes, the establishment made me mad this morning. I listened to
Oh,
about
this man.
60% of this Chuck Schumer interview because in the face of his vote that voted for the bill, I have no, I didn't pull up a video of it. I don't know. Is it worth explaining the bill? The short of it is
The short
the
is good.
the Republican Congress, the Republican House Representatives, Republicans in the House put together a bill. Is it a budget bill? I
I think so. I think it's because we're teetering on a government shutdown, which is
yes.
ironic.
So
Really? Hold on. The camera is saying that it's too hot in here, so it shut off the internal temp, but it's cold in here. That's why I have this on. Ugh. Okay, continue talking. Don't mind me.
Stephanie,
It said the camera said it's too hot. I'm like, it's not hot in here. It's freezing. That's why I have this dress on. Let me turn the AC on and just freeze myself.
oh no no no! What did I do? I just messed something up. Hold
It will
on.
turn back on in a minute. I'm listening to you. Don't mind me.
I know. I was trying to
Sorry.
talk about Chuck Schumer. But I'm look because like now I'm on the screen twice. Oh no.
Oh, it turned itself back on. It should pop up in a second. Okay, that's FaceTime. Let's see this. Done. Here we go. You might hear the AC because the AC's on now.
No, that's a little overlay. I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the shared screen. Here we go. It was.
Ah, littlest Kim. Me and the camera are constantly at odds.
I know. We need to
I just
get. We
want
need.
to do my
We
work.
gotta. We
I
gotta.
just want to do my work.
We gotta add AdSense to this, and then we need to get a grant so we can upgrade Stephanie's equipment because I just
This
don't
is a
know.
good camera, mind you. This is the one Halise gave me.
I
This
don't
is
think
a
your. I
Sony.
don't think your setup is good. It's not the
Probably
camera.
not.
It's not the
We
camera.
probably have to. We'll have to hire someone to come in here and just redo the whole
You have
thing,
like
and
the
they will
wrong.
deserve every penny of it.
You have the
They
wrong
will.
chords. YouTube used to have a creator program where they would do exactly that. They come to your house and set you up, which is why I have what I have.
Oh, see, shout out to actual practical funding in work. That's what I need. Oh, I
But
need
let's
some
talk
help.
about this. Okay, so I actually went to listen to this because I thought that he had written an op-ed in the New York Times. Maybe he did, and this was just different, and the interview came out at the same time, explaining why he voted for the bill. I did a Stephanie. I listened to this interview because you can listen to it on the New York Times. Audio. They have an audio version of it. It is an hour-long interview. I listened to it at 2 times speed, and I only got through him talking about Hamas and the anti-Semitism that he believes really came out post October 7th, and didn't even get to why the hell did you vote for that daggone Republican bill that basically, yes, it stopped the government from being shut down, but gave congressional power to Trump and Elon Musk to continue doing what they were doing with Doge. I
Which, from a legal perspective, to talk about that for 1 second, essentially what this bill does, and by voting for this bill, what Chuck Schumer and I think you said 12 other Democrats, what they have done is, before they voted for this bill, the rightful question of legality and of the Constitution was, hey, we have checks and balances. Elon Musk and this illegal fake department of Doge, they cannot be cutting budgets because anything having to do with money is the power of the Congress. By Congress signing this bill into place, they have essentially said, okay, it's not unconstitutional for the president, who is in the executive branch, a whole separate branch from the legislative branch, and this fake department of Elon Musk. It's not illegal for them to be doing this. We, the Congress, agreed. We agreed to allowing someone else to do our job, and that is now taking off it's not automatically making what they're doing legal, but it's taking off some of the legal pressures of likely a lot of these lawsuits, what these lawsuits challenging Doge and these budget cuts. The basis of these lawsuits is, hey, this budget cut is illegal because this department is illegal. What this bill is doing is undermining that legal argument,
and
which
so
is
here
very nefarious.
here's what Monday on Saturday. This is what Schumer had to say about this. It's a continuing resolution. I think it was very difficult decision between two bad options: a partisan Republican continuing resolution and a shutdown that Musk and Trump wanted. So that was their argument, that if the government shut down, Musk and Trump would get to decide who was essential and who wasn't, and then they would wipe out the government agencies that way. Either way, they're wiping out government agencies. Like there's nothing stopping them. There's nothing
Thank
stopping
you.
them. For me, the shutdown of the government would have just been devastating and far worse than the Republican CR. Let me explain. A shutdown would shut down all government agencies, and it would solely be up to Trump and Doge and Musk what to open again because they could determine what was essential. So their goal of decimating the whole federal government, of cutting agency after agency after agency, would occur under a shutdown. 2 days from now in a shutdown, they could say, well, food stamps for kids is not essential. It's gone. All veteran offices in rural areas are gone. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're not essential. We're cutting them back. So it'd be horrible. The damage they can do under a shutdown is far worse than any damage they could do.
Which is
Isn't
not
that?
true.
And then the interviewer tries to say, isn't that just, wait, let me just finish, Lulu. It can last forever. There's no off ramp. One of the Republican senators told us, we go to, oh, my headphones died. Ha 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 ha. Me.
Said, we will not comply. It is so cold in here. I need the camera to cool off so I can turn the damn AC off.
You know what? I think I left my
And thank you,
headphones on
Kendra.
all day. That's why. Anywho,
Oh,
under a shutdown, the executive branch has sole power. So, in that conclusion, I knew this would be an unpopular decision. I knew that. I know politics. But I feel so strongly as a leader that I couldn't let this happen because weeks and months from now, things could be far worse than they even are today. That I had to do what I had to do. And then the author says, can I just ask you about the tactic here? Because the choice that you made to vote with the Republicans, isn't that an argument to get rid of the filibuster? You wanted to keep it when you were in the majority. But if you're not going to use it in the minority, then what's the point of it?
Come
The
on,
point,
reporting, journalism.
the journalist was, she, when I was listening to the interview, she was letting him speak, but she was like, this some bullshit. Respectfully, Mr. Schumer, um, he just doubles down on the fact that the shutdown would have been devastating. But I'm asking about the use of the filibuster. The bottom line is, if the filibuster would have been used and the government shut down, the devastation would be terrible. You see, you've had government shutdowns before, but never against such nihilists, such anti-government fanatics as Trump, Doge, Musk. They've given us a playbook, by the way. Russell Vought, they're talking about Project 2025, has already written what he wants to shut down if he got a shutdown. Trump wanted a shutdown. Musk wanted a shut down. Ask yourself why.
Just to counteract the lies that he's saying, into someone's point as well, they could have, and under Trump, he has one of the highest rates of government shutdowns with the first presidency. So this is not something, Senator Schumer is the senator from New York. He's been in his seat for decades. He is used to this. This is not like, oh my God, I've never dealt with this man before, blah, blah, blah. Trump has been throwing temper tantrums since 2016. They could have had a temporary approval and then negotiated the terms after 30 days. So then the government wouldn't have shut down. There were a lot of different ways. To your point, Jouelzy, that you said last time, whenever they threaten shutdown, oh gosh, his droopy face is in my mind right now, but not his name. Oh, what is that Republican senator who's consistently, unfortunately, because they
McConnell.
keep putting McConnell, Mitch McConnell, who is on his way to a fiery place. McConnell loves a filibuster. So the fact that the Dems are unwilling to, the purpose of a filibuster, which is if you are in the minority party, so you don't have the amount of votes, you can sit there and say, I am not leaving. I'm forcing you all to work. We will sit here till 3 a.m. for 3 days until y'all hear me out and we agree to some type of consensus. And we have some argument back and forth about this. The Dems could also have done that. By those 12 Democratic senators voting for this, they have essentially taken away the voice of what the people, their actual constituents, want them to do, which is, people have overwhelmingly said, like, hello, please grow a spine and do something. And if you're not going to do something, then what are the regular people? What are we willing to do about it?
I'm sorry, we're going to have to, I would like.
Oh, wait, you cut off. Or maybe my sound cut off because I can't hear you.
I muted myself because of the
Oh,
echo, because I don't have headphones. But I'm saying we have to go back to this interview because this is good. Y'all should really. I listened to, it's on the pot. You can listen to the article on New York Times, but you can also pull it up in your podcast. Matter of fact, let me go and see which podcast was I listening to listen to. New York Times has a podcast called The Interviews. Yes, The Interview is what it's called. I don't know if you can see it. I have my autofocus turned off. But Chuck Schumer on Democrats' anti-Semitism and his shutdown retreat. Anyhow, I'm not going to read Schumer's response because you can go read that for yourself. But I do want to look at the journalist questions because this is a journalism, being a journalist, journalizing. I don't know what word I'm trying to use. Unlike Shannon Sharp on Club Shay Shay. But she says here, when I spoke to you earlier, I asked if you were the right leader for the second Trump term. You made the case that you were. You said, and I'm quoting you here, I'm sort of like an orchestra leader. But with this vote, it seems like you've lost the confidence of many of your players, from Nancy Pelosi to AOC, who have expressed genuine fury at this. Then she comes back and says, but it's how you go after Trump. The complaints are about your leadership. There has been reporting that you were not in regular touch with Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader of the House, leading up to your decision, that it took many in your caucus by surprise, that there didn't seem to be a plan. That is what more than anything seems to be the case, that many in your caucus are making against how this was handled. Hakeem Jeffries seemed to throw you under the bus on Friday. He was asked directly if he thought you should be replaced as leader, and he very poignantly refused to answer the question. Have you spoken to Jeffries since the vote? And she said, asked him twice. Okay, but you haven't spoken since the vote? No. And then she pivots to, Senator, you were crucial in getting President Joe Biden to step down. Do you think it's time for you to do the same? You
And that's
that was a
somebody
good,
who deserves her salary.
girl. Shout out to you because you really was. I'm all the way at the bottom of this interview. Lulu Garcia Navarra. Let me see if they have a picture of her. You really did
Doing the
that.
reporting.
Yes.
I have to list. I'm curious because so much of the interview he focused on the genocide in Palestine and in Gaza. So I haven't listened to the interview yet. So I'm curious to see like how she did sparring with him on those points, because Chuck Schumer is undoubtedly a very known beneficiary of AIPAC. He's a huge Zionist. He does not give a damn. So the fact
Oh.
that he chose to focus this interview on him trying to be like, I have been wronged, my people have been wronged, is objectively wild. Not surprising, but wild. So I'm curious to know. I hope she
Oh.
used that same energy in the
Oh
other
yes,
segment.
yes. So
Oh, good.
actually, let me control. He has a whole segment in here on genocide and how he doesn't like the word. Oh, here we go. This is where I checked out because it was making me so pissed off. She asked him about Jews' allegiance to Trump. He dismisses it. She talks about how, because he goes into how Biden is a Zionist, Biden is very pro-Israel, and she says, and it cost him, as in it cost Biden and the Democrats the
Mm-hmm.
election.
Mm-hmm.
And Schumer says it cost him a little. We're not sure about how much.
It cost him a lot. And also, him saying that he was a Catholic Zionist proved the point that everybody has been trying to make, including anti Zionist Jews, that Zionism is not synonymous with Judaism. It's two different things. Zionism is a political ideology of you feel entitled to everything in that region, as they are showing now with Syria.
Oh, I was like, why can't I see the comments? Yes. And then she asked, there's a big debate about where the line is between anti-Semitism and legitimate criticism of Israel's government. Where is that line for you? And he pivots to genocide. The one that bothers me most is genocide. Here we go. Genocide is described as a country or some group tries to wipe out a whole race of people, a whole nationality of people. So if Israel was not provoked and just invaded Gaza and shoot at random Gazans, that would be genocide. Well, bet you by golly, wow. Do we need a history lesson, Chuck Schumer? Charles?
That is what's been occurring. They've had a blockade for 17 years because that's what Israel decided to do.
That's not what happened. In fact, the opposite happened. It was Hamas. And he just goes on, and I listen, like, he's literally like, sorry, Lulu, I really have to drive this point home. This means so much to me. He would not let her interject because she comes back with, I'll
Wow.
say it's a word that the UN Special Committee has used. And he's like, I like, oh, here we go. This is, please. The UN has been anti-Israel, anti-Semitically against Israel. Moynihan was my idol. I mean, as a senator, his Senate run wasn't so bad, but he became famous when in 1976 they tried to pass a resolution that Zionism is racism, to say that Jewish people should not have a state when every other people should have a state. Where's every other people?
Where's our state?
And let's talk about the politics of nation building in an imperialist society. The fuck are you on, Schumer? Like, I want to bunk him on the head with several books. Like, what?
What he's on is, it's Manifest Destiny 5.0. It's the same thing of, look, this old raggedy book told me that I am entitled to colonization. That's what he's on.
I was, you know what I mean? I sorry we were a little late this morning because this interview really took the wind out of me, and we didn't even get to the fucking vote. We didn't even get to the domestic policy. This man's take on Israel. He literally, and he's crashing out. To hear the audio, I really behoove y'all to go back, if you have the bandwidth for it, to listen to this interview. Because she is really trying to, like, hold his feet to the fire, and he is like, no, I have this singular vision of what it means to be an American Jew, and how y'all are anti-Semitic because you are pro-Hamas. I don't care about them other people. I saw the picture of the boy with his limbs cut off, and the little girl who was crying because she lost both her parents. And that shit would be every day. But the Jews.
Meanwhile, at this point, they're in Miami. This happened. We didn't cover it. This happened 3 weeks ago, where I'm not sure if he was Jewish American or Jewish Israeli, a white man, a white Jewish man, shot at two other Israeli Jewish, a father and son. And quote, when he was arrested, he stated, "I thought they were Palestinian." He shot at them on Miami Beach, injured them, and then the victims of the crime, because they are so hateful, decided to go online and say, "Wow, this Muslim man shot at us." It's like, y'all are doing foolishness.
We have to move on to other
Colonization is
topics.
warping your brain.
But this interview so perfectly encapsulates like how lost the Democrats are. One of their party leaders is literally crashing out and cannot directly answer a question in any meaningful way over Zionism. He is so in bed with the Zionism. It's not that you Jewish, it's that you're a Zionist. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Anywho, this is only our second article. Actually, I was like, oh, we should talk a little bit about like, yeah, AOC. Pelosi just be saying shit at this point, whatever, girl. But AOC has really been on like a campaign to get the people to understand that the Republican Senate, the Democrat Senate, should not vote for the passing of this resolution. And so there's a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
turn the
discourse.
AC off real quick.
Yes, there's been a lot of discourse about them being upset at Schumer, but after that article, I get it. Okay. I briefly wanted to discuss, to pivot into Israel further, what's currently happening over there, in that the United States under Trump has sent missiles into Yemen. I believe Sana'a is how you say the capital. SANAA, and killed mostly Yemenese residents. And so Yemen is attacking back against U.S. aircraft in the Red Sea. So to explain this, I actually pulled up a TikTok because I thought it was a very interesting piece of news that very explains what's happening in that region right now and how America is at this point manufacturing. I don't think I can 2 times speed it. Dag, when you do it from the desktop. So it's 2
It's
minutes.
like in a weird place.
Is
You
it the 3
can
dots? Oh, here we go. Speed. I'm gonna
yeah.
1.5 speed it. Share my
There
screen.
also is an echo, so I'll keep myself on mute.
Yeah.
Cruise missiles and an aircraft carrier in the Red Sea. This comes after Trump ordered airstrikes on Sana'a which was the capital of Yemen, which killed dozens of civilians, mostly striking a residential neighborhood just slightly to the north of the capital city. If you want any more details on that, go to Dropsite News. You can Google our story on it. Shoaib Al-Mawasi is reporting for us on the ground there. But I did want to make one critical point here. We are doing this precisely and only to support Israel's right to continue to deny food, medicine, and electricity to Gaza. Like that's what's going on. We were the mediators, us, Egypt, and Qatar. We were the mediators. We guaranteed a ceasefire deal. In the ceasefire deal, Israel agreed that it would allow food and medicine into Gaza as part of the ceasefire deal. On March 2nd, Israel announced that it was going to stop allowing food and medicine into Gaza, an attempt to starve the population in order to force them to reach a different deal, to abrogate the deal that they had reached and then get a new one under different conditions. Yemen then announced that if Israel did not back off that policy within 4 days and start letting food and medicine back into Gaza, that they would renew their blockade of the Red Sea. 4 days went by, they didn't do it. On the 5th day, they renewed their blockade. Yemen has not attacked did not attack up to that point any American ships. All they said is that Israeli ships would no longer be allowed to traverse the Red Sea. So the United States then launched an enormous number of airstrikes at Trump's order and without any constitutional or congressional approval on Yemen. And then Yemen has now responded by attacking an aircraft carrier in the Red Sea. So American service members are being put in harm's way in order to support Israel's right to abrogate a ceasefire deal that they struck with us as the mediators and the guarantors.
Yeah, I thought that was very insightful. We're gonna have a crisis in the Middle East. We already have a crisis in the Middle East. I think there's a war is brewing. I just don't know if maybe because part of the United States attachment to Israel is their technology, their technological warfare advancements, is Israel and the Western in the United States really that technologically advanced when it comes to warfare that they can subvert any attack. But then you know what happens next.
It's so interesting. The reason why Israel as an entity has been allowed to be so technologically advanced, particularly in warfare, is because the US has pumped US government money, so public funds, our taxpayer money, venture
I was
capital
mute.
has
Sorry,
pumped.
I was muted that whole time.
No, I heard you.
No, I was mute. I muted myself though. I don't know how you heard me. That's so funny.
Oh, no, you were talking. You were muted for like a little bit of time, and then I told you that it came back on like 5 minutes ago.
Okay, if they well,
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah. No. You weren't muted. Um, all of this is because Israel has been running testing for all of these advanced weaponry against Palestinians. So it's not that Israel is so advanced, it's that because they are so lawless, the US benefits from being like, okay, well, we usually used to run things, testing on African Americans. We ran testing on Puerto Ricans. We've run testing on all of these people that we have colonized. It's not in vogue to do that anymore. So how about y'all do that over there and we'll just give you the money. And that part to me is so vile and so nasty that the US is willing to uproot our country and our democracy for their perceived right of like, well, we have to outsource it. We're outsourcing it to them and we want them to continue to do this. If a war does break out, it would have been started by Joseph Robinette Biden and the DNC because they refused to let go when the majority of their constituency said, hey, this is wrong. Hey, this is nasty. I don't like it. I don't like my taxpayer money going over there for this. Hey, what about the potholes over here? Hey, issue. And the DNC tripled down on it to the point where that was a large reason, in my opinion, why I believe it's like 10 million Democrats that usually come out to vote did not come out to vote for the DNC. And the DNC now is like, we're shocked. We're just still in shock, on top of just broken promises in general and not being able to give promises to their constituents.
The protection of Israel really is going to lead to the decline of our state. Like that is what it is. We are full throttle there. And it is absolutely insane. Like it's just that's also why the
It's a
Schumer
wild
interview
concept.
and the Schumer interview so greatly encapsulates that because he could not see past. Could not see past.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but the state of Israel deserves because it protects my people in a way that no other nation
And
is
it
protected.
doesn't.
Like no other nation gets this sort of coverage.
It also doesn't protect them. Like one of the things, so I did study abroad in Israel and Palestine when I was in law school. So there are a growing number of Israelis who are born there who are like, this is fucked. Like this is trifling, who consider themselves to be anti-Zionist Jews. And are like, I was just born here and I don't believe in this. So like they send their kids to what they call like multilingual schools because the schools with more money, like how we had Jim Crow here, and it's a different version of it now. The schools are separated by language. So the Hebrew schools have a lot more funding than the Arab schools. The multilingual schools would essentially be like our version of an integrated school of like, I believe my kid should be around around everybody. And those schools are constantly under bomb threats, etc. Israel, anti-Zionist Jewish people will tell you that Israel is inherently unsafe for Jewish people. They are creating problems for Jewish people because you are taught from a young age, hey, we have to have all these arms. Of course, the rabbi has an AK-47 and all this because we need to protect ourselves. They are consistently terrorizing people to live in a state of fear and a fear of people who precede them in the land so that way they can justify why they want to treat Palestinians that way. That is not safe. Israel is not this beacon of like, hey, everything is safe and I'm in Tel Aviv living my best life every 5 seconds. That place will give you a sense of agita and anxiety because you're like, why are all y'all on edge? Like, y'all don't want to talk to your neighbor and just calmness? Okay, we're not going to do that. All right, interesting. So that lie that I think it's particularly like American Jewish people, like who are Zionists, particularly American Zionists, like to repeat because it gives them, in their mind, a fake excuse as to why colonization is necessary. Because it's not true. Oh, now you're muted. You are
It's
muted now.
absolutely insane how much they just have to subvert the facts of reality. Like in October 7th, and I think at the end of the day, what will absolutely come out is that was a manufactured event. I think that was manufactured by the Israeli government to give them, and because they don't want to talk about anything else but October 7th. Schumer doesn't want to acknowledge anything else but October 7th. What was that, 2023?
Yes.
Yes.
2053. Yes.
And nothing else. No other historical context. No other context about that event or what's happened since then. Simply say, woe is me and my people. The Israeli government has a right to defend itself. Y'all are so full. Oh, guys, please go.
Oh, you're muted.
I know. I was
Okay. Okay. I was like, I didn't hear you.
This is a
Yeah, I
Stephanie
think,
article about the right that
yeah.
dominates the online podcast system.
Yes. And about that, it's been coming out that the Israeli government knew that an attack was imminent and they ignored it. It is also logistically, based on the way the Iron Dome is built, impossible for certain things to have taken place that took place in that manner without the government being like, all right, people are rightfully upset. 5 years prior to October 7th, 2023, you had large amounts of Palestinians in Gaza. I think it was called the right to return. It was a walking protest that they did for multiple years where they would literally just try to walk into Palestine, into what is their land, and then Israeli snipers would shoot them down. So like there's tons of historical context. There's also recent history of like, y'all have put these people in an open air prison. What did you Sense is not finding Chuck Schumer. And he doesn't want sense to find him. So we should vote for somebody else here in New York. Okay. To this. Oh, you said something. Hold on.
When
Sorry,
he's
girl.
in 2028, when he's up for re-election.
Yes. Which will be sooner than we know. Ugh, these 4 years are going to be.
I'm turning 40 in 2 weeks. And I'm just like, where'd the last 5 years of my life go? Like, and I'm about to spend the next 2 decades of my life dealing with this shit. Oh, I'm moving to the Caribbean. I'm checking out.
You're going to deal with me?
I'm gonna move to Barbados. So my homegirl just came back from Jamaica. She's like, I need to move there. I need to spend 6 months out of the year in Jamaica.
Listen,
and I'm like,
Jamaica,
yeah, life is better when it's sunny outside.
Life is better when there's sun. We have some room for improvements. We have lost some grounds with, these colonization resorts, these plantation resorts, but I still have hope in us that we can get most of our land back. Oh, yes. And to Simone's point, the March of Return. Thank you. I was like, I don't think I'm saying.
All right. Do you want to talk about this with the podcast?
Yes. So this dovetails into what we were talking about, maybe a month ago now. I would like to note that my friend who also works in the news pointed out to me, we have not hit the first 100 days of this administration. And that really hurt my spirit because all my life, I feel like we've been here and I don't like that. One of the things that has to be done, and this is something on an anecdotal level that I'm noticing, and then also this is being captured in actual data, points as well, which is the right dominates the online media ecosystem, seeping into sports, comedy, and other supposedly non-political spaces. So essentially, this is from Media Matters, where they have profiled the top 10 media, not just podcasts, but inclusive of podcasts that are getting the most amount of views. And 9 out of 10 of those media placements are right wing. The only one breaking the top 10 is Trevor Noah's podcast, What Now, which I found both fascinating but also disheartening. Because from a standpoint of, even if you are in your, I built this algorithm brick by brick, and your For You page and your YouTube page is left, and you're like, oh, I have things that are, for the socialists, for the communists, for the anarchists, etc. It still trickles in and you still see it a bit. What I find really fascinating and what we talked about, I think a month ago now, which was the current administration, their podcast rollout, where compared to the DNC, they invested so much money into going on these white men podcasts. So Jake Paul, Theo Vaughn, Shapiro, their favorite person, Joe Rogan, who loves to be like, I am a centrist. I don't have a political affiliation. Centrism means you are in the right, the far right party. That's what it means. That's what our version of centrism is. You're in the far right. Him just saying that makes people feel better about themselves. That's all it's doing. One of the things that anecdotally that I had started to notice is a lot of the funding that I received last year for grants to do basic, like, hey, this is where the economy is going. These are the nefarious bills that corporations are lobbying for. Things that used to show up on my student loan series. That's usually like where I'd plug them in. Like, hey, this is what your local union is doing. Plug into your local union. So a little bit of like, okay, for the people information that was funded by various nonprofits. The majority of those nonprofits, I hate to say it, and I hate that for me too, they don't have any funding. Their funding has been pulled. They don't have any money anymore, versus I'm seeing like, wait, the right wing, every day I'm seeing a new right wing influencer just pop up saying nonsense. It's always like the same Candace Owens-esque talking points. Like, it's nothing new. So you can spot them. But the question I always have is like, wait, girl, your camera works good. Like, who set up your camera? Where did you get that money? Like, somebody is funding you. They have all of that built out. And I wish I could have found it. It popped up on Saturday when I was on the train. So the train doesn't have good service, so I couldn't save it. But it popped up this man who has 30 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. And he was stating what the right wing and the RNC has done is they do not give 6-month, 1 year, even 5-year grants. They are funding, the Heritage Foundation is giving 10, 20, and 30-year grant funds, which means if somebody were to give me 20 years worth of like, hey, Stephanie, we're paying for the entirety of the next 20 years of your creator career, y'all would see Complexion of Law would have a full series rollout. They would pay for this. We could get a researcher. Like, there would be no, okay, I have to go back to corporate because all of it's paid for. The evil that is, Edward Blum is a really good example. Edward Blum is the man who carried the torch to overturn affirmative action. It took him 20 years to do that. And for 20 years, he was like, I'm going to do this. He did not fund himself. He has a bunch of right-wing sponsors that are helping him do that work. The DNC, because the DNC is the party of whatever's going on right now, currently, I just want to keep the status quo, is very much Chuck Schumer. Like, I have my money and it's not funny. Unlike yours. Sorry to you, working class people, middle class-ish people. Sorry to you as well. They don't give a damn. And so one of the things, like, instead of this making me like very upset and get me down, I think instead it showed like, okay, we need to really just abandon the DNC. Like, I don't think there's any reforming it. Like, we need to figure out how do we get their money because they do have very large cash funds. And then how do we build up more, grassroots from the electoral politics standpoint, more grassroots partnerships like an AOC. AOC has a lot of flaws. However, AOC is one of the few people still doing the thing, Bernie Sanders, things of that nature. And while we do that, how do we maybe get all of the third parties together to actually have a party? Because there are other wealthy people that have money and maybe they're not leftist, but they feel bad enough that they are giving. And they do have money, because I am a beneficiary of other nonprofits that are holding on to their money, and they're only holding on to their money because it's being privately funded by a wealthy family. And guilt money is money at this point, because without that, like, you're going to cease to see any type of leftist commentary, any type of leftist thought, and it's just going to be a cacophony of right-wing foolery, which is currently going on.
Cacophony is a really good word.
Because it sounds bad. It hurts my spirit.
Can we get? I'm a little resistant to the idea that the revolution will be funded. that like the politics that I think are necessary for a revolution to be productive do not align with the idea that it is going to be funded.
I think that's a good point. I think
Matter of fact, there's a book called "The Revolution Will Not Be Funded" that details why that is not an actual option, and we do have to find a way to get out of the necessity of needing money to impact change.
I'm going to work on my imagination. I think you need money because we do live in a capitalist society. Even if you are not a capitalist, you need money at a basic level to meet your basic needs, because we don't have universal basic income, unfortunately, and
But
we have
like
no
Joe
social
Rogan
services.
wasn't funded from the gate. Like a lot of these podcasts aren't necessarily funded from the gate. They amass audiences. And I don't know, how much is Jordan Peterson really making? I don't think he's one of the. I think like Candace Owens is absolutely being funded, but even that's
Ben Shapiro is definitely
she
funded.
had to sell the coochie out to make sure that funding stayed around. Like, come on, like let's be the funding wasn't just here. That girl married a man and had his children, a white British, because he comes from old money. They are in a that's a lavender marriage if I ain't never seen one. And they probably have sex like they do on The Handmaid's Tale. She lay down, put a skirt up, and let him have at it for the 10 seconds he needs. They're not in love with each other. They do not go on dates.
I don't know what he looks. I've never looked at anything of them because I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't
I
want
don't
to
know if
be
they're
in
being
that.
funded so much as that they're being promoted. Like other things are happening. I don't think anybody is like rolling in the dough. Like, Joe Rogan got an exclusive deal with Spotify. That was his funding. He got $1 million, like several $1 million deal with Spotify. And so I think there is also a lane where a certain amount of labor can subvert the necessity for funding. People are going to have to make a sacrifice.
And I think that's a good point, the sacrifice point. And before that, I think a lot of them are being funded by various levels of the federal government. And also, it came out that Trump and his team messily were giving right wing podcasters money, particularly some of them are getting money from Russia. And then when they got called out about it under investigation, they stated their agency didn't know where the money came from. And they were just signing checks and collecting 100K. I think the problem is that like at least in the landscape we're in now, because we're all online. Ooh, sorry, I don't hit the mic. Hopefully that didn't hurt your ears. In the landscape we're in, because the most successful movements that people remember have people don't see like the informal work. All they see is the leader at the top. They don't see like there was a lot of collective building, that a lot of people helped the civil rights movement. They just see MLK, which is like very interesting in that people online will be like, oh, but like we don't have leadership, so that's what the problem is, versus seeing like, no, we actually had like a lot more community building. And if we had more community building, then we could get more things done. Because we are in late stage capitalism and everybody is rightfully so burnt out, the sacrifice is hard. I think it's hard to tell people like, we don't got universal basic income, but that's okay. Come on and get with your neighbor and let us get into the street and figure it out, because there's so much individualism, because capitalism has forced us to be like, okay, well, I have to take care of myself. I have to pay this rent. I got to pay this light bill. Most people likely are taking care of a few family members too. I have to make sure if their social security gets cut off, I have to do this, and that. You know what? I don't have time for this because I need to focus on taking care of this. And at the end of the day, now I'm exhausted. Versus the right wing is like, okay, we will fund you the basic setup cost for the podcast. We'll give you the basic this. So no, we're not going to make you a millionaire, but we will make it easy for you to be able to integrate this into your everyday life. And the DNC does not care about doing that. So I do think a level of funding is needed. Because how
But you
else are
can
people going to
grassroots
survive?
fund, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant to this idea that like the only way we're going to be able to do something subversive is if we get this big entity to give us, and it's really not, it's to secure our lifestyle essentially.
I don't think it's the only way. I think it is one of the ways, because if not, what we're seeing online is you're getting a lot of people who like their face there, but they are not community minded. So they have created great lifestyle for themselves, and maybe they'll rile you up every once in a while, but like, where's the community aspect of it? So it's like, okay, cool. Like, I can look and say, like, I watch XYZ leftist person. I learned this thing. This is great. Maybe it motivated me, but like, there's no actual offline community attached to it. I think that's what we're seeing now.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have one last debate on our last news story, because I have contrarian opinions about this video that is circulating from an
Oh, the
Asheville Republican town hall. Yes, in which Congressman Chuck Edwards, the Chucks are going through it, was met with a very angry crowd. I'm gonna let Stephanie opine.
I think, well, okay, here, you play it first, and then
Yes, I'll play it first.
we don't have to play the whole thing either.
Oh, where's my mouse? Oh, it's everywhere but where I need it.
I'm a veteran. You don't give a fuck about me. Shut the fuck up. You don't get the fucking union to us. You don't get to take away our rights. You don't get to take our health care. Get off of me. You don't get to do this to us. Fuck you. Fuck you.
So to be clear, I deeply value the contributions that
Just to
federal
be clear,
employees
you're
make
bullshit and you're not telling the
every
truth.
day
You're not
to keep
listening.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
services. For example, folks at the National Weather Service
Are fired. You're lying. I'm a
Okay.
That was it, Stephanie.
I'm not gonna lie, it does bring me joy to see white men direct their anger towards other white men. It does. I'm like, oh wow, maybe satisfied to you. And I would also like to say my bar of hopefulness for collective whiteness is so low. That's why that gives me joy. Because white people don't listen to anybody that's also not a white man. So the only way I think that they're gonna get it together is if they see other white men being like, wait a goddamn minute, we have rights. We have rights and we're owed things. And it's you, other insert white man, who is taking my rights. That is the only reason why it gave me a little bit of hopefulness, to be honest. I think I would have got more hopefulness if they would have realized, hey, there's something inherently wrong, that your neighbor is rightfully pissed off, has lost his Social Security, and is yelling, and you are allowing them to push him out of a place that he is legally allowed to be. And I understand, like, the majority of the crowd is elderly people. However, you all could have stood up and said, no, you are not gonna, I don't know what his name is, insert John. You are not gonna remove John, my neighbor of 30 years, from here because he cussed you out. So what? Get over it. We have freedom of speech, and I'm gonna stand here and ensure that John is not removed. I don't think that they've gotten there yet. They know they have rights, but they're not riled up enough to be like, hey, we need to actually enforce our rights. I do think it's a drop of maybe the right direction. Maybe.
I want to know how everyone is registered in that room. I see these clips circulating, and I think they are meant to give us a sense of hope that, like, the side that needs to be standing up, the Republicans are standing up. And I'm just of the belief that Republicans are deeply entrenched in a cult of personality, and that actual Republican voters are not the ones showing up to those meetings upset.
Maybe.
And so I'm just a little benevolent, maybe. I'm a little cautious. I'm a little apathetic to seeing these news stories about the town hall meetings.
I do think, and like back to the previous article, I do think because there is so much right-wing propaganda, funded or unfunded, and it is just festering everywhere, whether or not you're turning to something called Politics Popped, you're about to watch something about news and politics, or you're like, you know what, I'm just turning on my favorite lifestyle girl who happens to be cooking food in a beautiful ball gown, and no, this is not trad wife content. It's just cute. It's making me happy that people are being fed so much right-wing propaganda that things like this, I do think they're helpful in showing people, hey, use your imagination. There is a whole nother way of life, which there is a way of life where you, as a citizen of any complexion, you can cuss your congressman off. Actually, it's not illegal. Maybe their feelings are hurt. I don't think Chuck's feelings were hurt. Chuck don't seem to care, but so what? Sticks and stones may break my bones. Chuck will build his bridge and get over it. I think people need to be reminded, like, I am a human being. I'm a human being in America. I'm not deserving of the rights. I have them. They are mine. You cannot do this to me. You cannot go and prop up this random man from Atlanta. Elon Musk is not from Atlanta, but you cannot prop up this random man in this fake department and take away my shit. That's
He a
illegal.
random man from Cape Town with them 7-Eleven kids. Come on.
Is he from, like, I don't even know where he's from. His
Africa,
family,
I don't know either.
as an aside, I don't know where he's from, South Africa. I'd say, as an aside, his family got kicked out of Canada, which is wild. And like, you got kicked out of Canada, went to South Africa to do more colonization, and essentially self-kicked yourself out, and now you're in a third country. A wild. I need more people to get upset as this Asheville man. And if it starts with he already is a registered Democrat, well, that's at this point like pushing right anyway. So I need more people to see upset people at the town hall, to be honest.
Elon Musk really does. We went over this in a previous episode. He has like 12 kids.
14.
Yeah, Elon Musk has 14 children. He is that random man from South Africa. His baby mom could be on TikTok talk about stay-at-home mom to toddlers with a 50-something-year-old husband or 50-something-year-old baby daddy who's ruining the country. They could really eat down with that concept.
Spit out my water. This has gone into such a flabbergastingly dismal place that I think even basic, reminding people, is needed. I want them to show all the town halls, and I want them to show all of the white people, regardless of how they voted. I want to show white people seeing other white people getting upset at other white people and being like, hey, accountability, brother.
If you believe in the white people being reasonable, I support you.
Oh, I didn't say that.
You believe in their potential to find the line of reason. I will support you in that belief. We would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I need to go eat.
Start at step one.
Guys,
start at step one.
We'll see you at 9:30 on Thursday. Stephanie's going back to the corporate world, so we will be striving.
We will be on time. We will be on time, child.
And if you made it to the end and you want an audio version, I will get back to posting these regularly on Spotify by 12 noon every time we stream. But thank y'all for joining.
Thank y'all. Have a good week.
To the end, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Twitch.
I was like, where's this going? The other platform.
Tell your friend, tell a friend to tell a friend, and tell a friend. Let people know that we is doing the work. All right. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you on the other side. Have a good Monday.
Yes. Please.
It is Mercury retrograde. Somebody said it in the comments, and I should have known that because I was born on the first day of Mercury retrograde. So there's always a retrograde right around my birthday. Which, yes, when I met with my astrologer the first time, he talked about how that specifically sways my chart and created the person you see here today. I was meant to be in communications.
Oh, when I get my first corporate check, we will, I'll ask you for the astrologer and put that in my budget. I would love to see one.
Yes, he's like $250 now, but he's worth it.
Okay. People got to eat. I bought eggs today, $11. It was wild.
I have WIC. Oh my gosh. My WIC reimburses on the side. We used our 2 eggs. We have 2 cartons of eggs in the refrigerator now. But I
love
get
that
2
for
cartons
you.
of eggs a month, and they are $9.99.
Ours, it was $10.99, and I was like, yo, this is not name brand. This is not even organic. Like, this is a GMO chicken for
It's
$10.99.
craziness. All right, guys, we'll see you on
Yeah.
Thursday. Bye.
Bye.